Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Pick Up and Play podcast. My name is DJ Switch, and I've got just a couple things I want to go over real quick before we get into today's interview. First of all, I want to give a big thank you to everybody who's been subscribing to the channel. I am still currently losing subscribers about as fast as I'm gaining them, and so I've been kind of hovering around the same rough subscriber count. And so I want to ask if you've been enjoying the show, if you've enjoyed maybe more than one episode and you want to keep up on the episodes that I'm releasing every Friday, please, please, please consider subscribing to the YouTube channel. Once I can get this ratio to sort of shift back the other direction, then I should have a much easier time getting through some of the weird nonsense with the YouTube algorithm. I knew this was going to happen. It's part of the growing pains of shifting from one type of channel to a different type of channel. And I was aware of that. But I absolutely need your help. So please consider subscribing. It is completely free to you, and it would massively help me out. That being said, the next thing I want to tell you about is an event that's going to be coming up on April 20th, which is just over a week away. And it's going to be my birthday party event. It's called Lo-Fi VGM at the Vault. It's going to be at Vault 31 Bar, the very same bar that's been sponsoring this show for the last couple months at this point. I'm so excited to be partnering with Vault 31 Bar and partnering with our friends over at Final Form PDX. And of course, my guest for today, Curaga Records. And I'm going to get into that. I'm going to get into that in just a minute. I'm telling you all, this is one of my favorite interviews that I've had in quite some time. But before I can get to my interview with Rob from Curaga Records, the last thing that I wanted to mention to you all is that some of my absolute favorite moments, both from this episode and from episodes that I've had in the past, including, by the way, a special shout out to the extra spicy content that didn't make it to YouTube from my interview with Josh at SideQuest. All of that is on the Patreon. And so I absolutely need folks to subscribe to the YouTube channel. It doesn't cost anything, and it would mean the world to me to be able to break out of this weird Sisyphean hell that I'm in with my subscribers right now, trying to shift my channel over towards the podcast and away from the stuff I used to make. But if you want to support the channel, and if you want to support what I'm doing, there is some incredible content that I'm posting over on my Patreon. The link is in the description. It's patreon.com/DJSwitchPDX. And you will get some extra fun stories and ad-free versions of every video that I post here. So there's definitely some benefits to subscribing to the Patreon. And as the Patreon grows, I'll be able to add even more benefits over time. So big thank you to my Patreon subscribers. Big thank you to the Portland Retro Gaming Expo. My thank you, of course, to Rob from Curaga. And as always, my biggest thank you to my friends at Vault 31 Bar for sponsoring this episode. And I can't wait to tell you a little bit more about them later on in the show. But in the meantime, we have to get on with the interview today. This is my friend Rob from Curaga Records. And before we get to the mid-show break, I will be telling the story about how Rob and I were able to reconnect after knowing each other for years. It's kind of a really goofy story, but it's actually one of my favorite stories to tell as of like the last month or so. Setting this whole thing up and getting us to the point where we could sit down and record this interview together. So it's pretty fun. I really enjoyed this episode, and I hope that you'll enjoy my interview with Rob from Curaga Records. Rob, thank you very much for hanging out today, man. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so excited, man. You and I have known each other for a while. And I'm so excited to get into the story about like how this episode happened and what we have planned going into later in this month. But the first thing I want to do is start out with you, just as an artist. You have been really passionate about video game music and video game remixes for a really long time. And I want to know, like, where did that decision come from to like steer your music career towards video game music, and how did you get started?
Okay, so it started about 2014. I also go by Rob, so I've been doing electronic music under that name for a long time. And in 2016, I've started. Yeah, I want to say maybe a little before that because I did a compilation with Tiny Waves. It was Tiny Waves, Materia Collective, Louder, and Game Chops at the time. It was straight from the underground. And I was involved with a lot of that planning and execution, and I had a track on there as well. Um, I did Straight to the Underground. It was like a not wubby, I would say more dub trap style remix of it that
Mm,
did really well. And that kind of like I had done some video game remixes in the past, but I was mostly original house, electro house. That was my vibe back then.
yeah, I remember.
And yeah, so yeah, it started out there. I would say really heavily with Tiny Waves when I was involved with Ben Briggs and the Tiny Waves crew, and managing that label. We started doing a bunch of different like little Kirby albums. We did a Yoshi album with just compilation with all of our homies on it. And that's kind of where my love of remixing came from.
Mm,
Shortly after I played MagFest main stage in 2017 or 18, I believe. Yes. And yeah, it was 2018. And I had an incredible time, right? Playing MagFest main stage is one of those like nerdy musicians' dreams, right?
yeah,
To be able to be up on main stage and all that.
that's for
Um,
nerd music. That's the festival.
it's the festival to do, yeah, to play
Yeah,
at.
that's the one. Yeah.
And and the next year, not the next year, but like that next year was when I really started getting into the Materia Collective side of things. Sebastian, the CEO of Materia, hit me up at that time and said, "Hey, what would it take to get a Kingdom Hearts remix album from you?" And that's kind of what birthed Kingdom Heartbeats, which is still to date one of my most successful remix albums. Like it's not a brag, but we charted on Billboard with that album, right?
Yeah.
So that's a huge accomplishment.
I think
And
that's worth bragging about, especially for an
yeah,
indie artist.
right. Like I started from like making video game remixes in my bedroom. You know what I mean? Like every other person that starts on this career path, that's really where it starts.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, I've just always had a love for gaming and how stories can be told through that medium, and just like the ability to transport yourself to another world and forget about all the bull crap that's going on in the world around you, and just for a little while, just connect with those characters and those stories, or like the gameplay and especially the music, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty sure every VGM musician has this kind of story to tell, but like specifically remember like being a kid and just turning on the Nintendo 64 Zelda Ocarina of Time and just listening to the title theme for an hour, right?
Yeah.
Plucking out the melodies on a piano and figuring it out that way. And like that's how I learned music, was like by ear for a while. And then my parents were like, "Oh, okay, you're pretty good at this, so let's put you in lessons." And I've just always had a love and affinity for what video game music brings to the experience of playing a video game. Because
Yeah,
I don't
man.
remember, like I couldn't tell you every story beat that happens in Chrono Trigger, but I could tell you the order in which the songs are played, like on the OST. I could tell you, like we could go back and we could talk about Secret of Forest for 20 minutes if you want, like how that's one of the best songs ever written. Uh, excuse me. But yeah, just I've have really just such an affinity for what video game music brings to the experience, and I try to project I try to project that, the simplicity of that, I think, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like there's no reason to overcomplicate it, right? Like I feel like instead of making it its own thing, I would rather take the core elements and make my own thing out of it, but again, like I don't oversimplify the process, right? I don't spend too much time thinking about like what kind of instrument should I put here? What kind of instrumentation should I use? Or what kind of chord progression should I have? It needs to come naturally, or I just don't do the remix, right? Like
Yeah.
if I don't have a connection with the music in the first place, like there's a few songs, right, where like I can just appreciate the music. I don't play the game.
Sure.
But for the most part, I have to have that kind of like deep connection with the music originally to want to put it out there anyways. Like here's my version of this from my heart that connects with me,
I'm on record as admitting that Ocarina of Time is probably my favorite game of all time. And I'm not, before people blow up my comments, I'm not saying the best game of all time. I'm not saying it's the best, Zelda game. For me, it's my favorite. It's the one that brought me into the world of RPGs. It's the one that brought me into the world of adventure games outside of like something like a platformer or a sports game or, that kind of thing. Beat 'em up. Those were mostly what I was playing until I discovered Ocarina of Time. And it was a very, very influential experience for me. And a big part of the reason for that was because I was also growing up playing the saxophone, and I connected so deeply with the music from Ocarina of Time that it still informs a lot of my opinions and a lot of my feelings about music now in video games. So I completely understand where you're coming from on that. But my question then has to be, partly because this is a retro gaming podcast, but also because I've noticed this with the VGM community, and especially in the lo-fi VGM space, so much video game music covers and remixes that get produced. And I'm not just talking about you. I mean, I'm talking just sort of like at the VGM space at large. So many of the covers and recordings and remixes that get produced are focused on nostalgic gaming, old video games, classic video games. You see so many more, for example, something like a Kingdom Hearts, you're going to see a lot more remixes just in general from the first Kingdom Hearts game than you will from the third one. Yeah. And I don't mean like the third one. I mean like the actual proper Kingdom Hearts 3, which was what, the fifth or sixth game in the series?
The 365th and a half entry into the game. Yeah.
Right. But like, why do you think it is that so many video game music producers focus so much on classic gaming and retro gaming when they're looking for soundtracks to pull from?
It's because of the nostalgia factor. It's because at that time, like, let's be real, the world right now is in a very volatile and
stressful place.
Stress as full as, I don't know how much I can swear on this podcast, but that's how stressful it is.
It's good.
It's stressful as shit, bro.
Yeah.
And it just transports you back to a time where the feeling of security or the warmth you get from like the story that is being told, it resonates with those feelings.
Yeah.
And that's where, like I said, that's where I think I shine the best, because I need that connection with the game music to be able to do what I do. And I think that's I think that's the way a lot of producers in the VGM remix scene produce, like that's how they approach their production process. Is like, if you don't love the game already or love the music in it or have at least a deep appreciation for it, then it shows in your production work. It feels a little more manufactured. It feels just a little bit more like this is just I'm just making lo-fi to make lo-fi and stay on trends and stuff like that. And there's nothing wrong with that either. There's something to be said about staying on trending topics, trending games, making sure that you're catching as much of an audience as you can with your marketing strategy.
Right.
But I think that's like a whole separate issue that you have to deal with, right? Like marketing and then production are just like their own beasts when it comes to this stuff. So
I think it also really reinforces what you were saying earlier, in that a lot of the remixes that you make for the love of the music and for the love of the remix.
Yeah.
I happen to have on my desk a copy of Super Mario 64, the Save Point, and it was 88-bit.
Yep, 88-bit. One of my favorite albums I've ever made to date.
So this is one of your cassette tapes. You made this.
Yep, I did.
And it's all Super Mario 64 stuff, which is a game that came out 25 years ago plus.
1996. Yep.
Closer to 30 years ago. And there is no like marketing advantage for a 30-year-old video game.
Well, that's the thing, man. Video game music is evergreen.
So, but
it's the nostalgic factor, though, right?
But I mean, you're not doing it for the marketing, because
like
if you're doing it
because we love Super Mario 64.
Exactly, that's the point I'm trying to make, is that you're doing it for the love, not for the money. Nobody gets into video game music for the money. That's for sure.
They don't. I'm trying to pave that path forward. Trust me.
Sure. No,
I want us to be. Yeah. And like, I think that's something to note is Materia Collective, Louder, when it was Louder before, when we worked with them, like Materia Collective and Sebastian have been what's the right word here? We would not be in a place where we are.
Would today. You say they've been instrumental?
Instrumental. Oh, yes, I like that.
But
I like that one. They have been instrumental in like just the way we're able to do things now, right? Like 10 years ago, this was still hard. This was still hard to get your remixes out there. Yeah. And it took a long time to get everything licensed correctly. And there's still, I feel like a lot of like this, one of the secondary initiatives and goals of Curaga Records is to educate the community and to educate our artists, because we can't continuously keep putting out these remixes that are not licensed properly. And that has been a huge part of what Materia Collective, our record label, parent record label for Curaga and Curaga Records, they've been instrumental in helping us get those licenses, excuse me, in getting those licenses and making sure that everything is legal. And we've had several projects where we've had to, deny and swap out a couple of tracks here and there just because there hasn't been a release of that song in the United States. And that's what we have to license all of our tracks from. Yeah. So, like, trust me when I say, oh my gosh, Nintendo, please release some goddamn Animal Crossing music in the United States, because we all want lo-fi remixes of that album, of that game franchise, right? That are relevant. But Nintendo is pretty I
have my little
pretty sticky
KK DJ plushie. Nice. That's KK slider behind a pair of turntables. That's great. Like a gift from a friend of mine. Yeah, I know that the days of like OC remix are long gone. OC remix. Yeah, I don't know if they're abandoned or not, but
I don't think they're abandoned. I know I know Pretzel handed the reins over to Flex Style and oh my gosh, why am I forgetting their artist name? Dark Sword, I think. Yeah, but I know DJ Pretzel's out. He gave it up. Not gave it up, but he handed the reins over, and they're moving. They're moving in a direction that's more in tune with the needs of our artists and like the needs of of how like licensing is needed. If you're not licensing your things everything correctly, it is really just a waste of time, because you always run the risk of invoking the wrath of Nintendo or Sony or whoever, right?
Yeah. One of the problems though that I ran into as a DJ looking for remixes to play and looking for tracks to play at parties and stuff is, with OC Remix, it's become this like impossibly deep ocean of tracks that have built up over 25 years.
Yeah,
however long
those are OGs, been around.
Man. Yeah,
the OGs,
and I hope that whoever's in charge now is able to sort of like steer that ship in a more productive direction.
Yeah.
But I can tell you from my standpoint as a DJ, digging for tracks and trying to find quality stuff to play, trying to find quality stuff that will mix, because like it has to have a beat to mix. I can't just mix avant-garde weird jazz remixes and stuff. Like
Right.
nobody like even if I were in front of a room full of people that wanted to hear that stuff, I still need to be able to perform it as a DJ.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a push play kind of DJ. I'm mixing my stuff.
So here's something fun for you as a DJ. You'll appreciate this.
Yeah.
So you know all my RoboRob albums that have come out in sequence. There's One Beat Angel that came after Kingdom Heartbeats, which is Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
And then we had Mega Remix Man 1. We had Deltarune, which was Delta Tunes. And then we had Mega Remix Man 2. And all of those, if you play them front to back, they are harmonically mixed, right? So it starts out in F minor. And the next track is in C minor, or the next track is in G minor, and then the next track is in, whatever comes next. So I did it. I organized it that way, and for the most, for the most part, you can press play on track 1 and do some slight beat mixing, and you can just play the whole thing all the way through. Easy mode for DJs.
I do appreciate that, but also I'm not gonna do that.
Oh, I know.
As a DJ, like I'm gonna, it's like
I did this for me.
Sure. Jeff. Well, no, I appreciate that. So you could go on stage
because I'm lazy DJ.
You go on stage, you press play and get paid.
Yeah.
I need to mix this. Like a chef, from one chef to another, you're gonna take the same ingredients and you're going to make something totally different with it. So too does a good DJ mix a set based on the room that he's in, and mix a set based on how they're feeling that night or whatever, and so I think that's some of the more nuanced stuff about what we do as DJs that gets lost, particularly in a non-DJ environment like the video game community, which is totally fine. I'm okay with not everybody understanding what I'm doing back there, as long as the one thing they do understand is that I'm not pushing play and throwing my hands up. There's a reason why I'm busy.
There's been a few times. I'll preface this with, for the most part, a lot of DJs, a lot of producers in the VGM community are also DJs, and to an extent, at least know like what the type of crowd that they are making music for, right? Like,
right.
That's why I had to separate Save Point from RoboRob, is because I can't create lo-fi chill jazz hop under the same banner as my EDM house and my drum and bass and shit. Like, people would just stop listening because that's not what they're there for.
Well, and that is why I think this has been probably my favorite story to tell people for the last month, is you and I reconnecting through Emerald City. I got to tell people about Emerald City. Yeah. This is really funny to me, and it's like you and I have known each other for years. I was taking some basic production lessons from you at one point, so like we've known each other for a minute. Yeah. And I've always known you as RoboRob, and so I started getting into lo-fi VGM stuff a little bit in like 2019, and then the pandemic hit, and lo-fi music as a genre exploded, right? From 2020 forward.
And like I can add on to this in a minute, but that is how Curaga Records started. So I'll dig into that in a second. Yeah, finish your story.
So cut to, I have this idea about wanting to sort of like lean more into the lo-fi thing. I want to put a lo-fi party together, and I've been a fan of what Curaga Records has been doing, and I had started. I basically had run out of records to buy from another label that's doing VGM lo-fi stuff, and I was like starting to buy records from Curaga, because everything that Curaga was putting out was just fantastic. And then what really fueled that for me last year was discovering your album, the jazz. Well, here.
Jazz Hop Standards. Yeah.
Let me just consult the album I happen to have right here, because it's sitting on my turntable right now. Video Game Lo-Fi Jazz Hop Standards, by this guy called Save Point.
And Patrick McBride.
And who else? Who else is on it?
Patrick McBride.
Patrick McBride. You guys did a fantastic job with this record. And it very quickly, because again, I was a saxophone player growing up, so it very, very quickly became my absolute favorite record on my shelf.
Those sax solos fucking rip.
Yeah. No, the whole thing, just front to back, very quickly became my favorite record on my whole shelf. Not just my favorite VGM record, by the way.
Wow.
Thank you. And I mean that. It's why it's sitting right here, because I've got the record actually sitting on the deck. Because I was listening to it before we started today. But anyway, so I'm a big fan of this. And then I'm following Curaga on Instagram, and I see that Curaga Records posts to their Instagram account that they're at Emerald City Comic Con. And we've had other record publishers that do more like video game soundtrack stuff as vendors for the Portland Retro Gaming Expo.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I've got a podcast now and I'm doing more networking. And so maybe it would be beneficial to do a little bit more networking on behalf of the Portland Retro Gaming Expo through the podcast. And so I was like, I kind of like, mustered up the confidence. And I was like, hey, my name is DJ Switch. I'm the DJ and MC for the Portland Retro Gaming Expo. I think you guys would do really well. I see you're at Seattle at Emerald City Comic Con. I would love to have you guys come down to Portland in September and do the Portland Retro Gaming Expo. And I figured no one was going to get back to me until Monday, right? And then 20 minutes later on a Friday at Emerald City.
I'm at Emerald City.
I get this message back, and it's, yo, Switch, it's Rob. Rob who? Yo, man, it's Rob. I've been publishing as Save Point. I run Curaga Records. I did not see that coming.
It's really funny, man, because like I wanted to run that little experiment for a minute. I want to say the first, like I told everyone I was running Curaga and Curaga Records when I started the labels, but
you're not really on Facebook anymore.
I'm not. I hate that platform with a passion.
Well, that's fair.
That's
totally fair.
I only use their meta, like the business suite to do ads and stuff. Like I hate Facebook. It's so, dude. Side note, but as soon as we started doing ads on Facebook through their ad manager suite, we kept getting all this spam mail from people being like, hi, my name is Josie, blah, 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 and you have a content warning, blah, blah, and they're like threatening to take our channels down. Like, who are these people? How do they find you? And what do they think they're going to accomplish? Okay, sorry. I don't know.
It's stupid.
Random thought, but
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, but it's terrible.
It's pretty bad. It's like daily. I get these messages daily from these people. Whatever.
But you and I were friends on Facebook, and then you left Facebook, and I don't know if we ever reconnected, like on Instagram or any other platform. You don't do a lot of social stuff, and so I missed the announcement that you were running Curaga Records. I had no idea that was you. And
I didn't tell anyone that I was Save Point for a good like 2-3 years. It was not 2-3 years, like the first year and a half. Yeah, we're gonna be 3 in May next month. We're gonna be 3 years old. Curaga is.
So imagine my surprise when I get this message back 20 minutes later. It's like, yo, Switch, what's up?
What's up? Where you at? Let's hit it up.
You asked me, you were like, hey man, are you coming to the thing in Seattle? And I was like, I'm not gonna drive up for that.
No. It's like a 4-hour drive for you, man. No way.
Well, it's only 3 hours, and honestly, Emerald City is one of those that like I've had fantastic experiences at Emerald City. I used to go see when Kyle's band Kirby Crackle was playing at the Hard Rock.
They're
And
great.
so Emerald City Comic Con used to be like the anniversary party for Kirby Crackle because they formed at Emerald City many years ago. And so they would always play like their anniversary thing at the Hard Rock Cafe where they would have a big performance. And the last time I drove up to Seattle was like right before the pandemic. I drove up to see Kirby Crackle and Word Burglar. And I got to meet I got to meet Word Burglar. He signed a 7-inch of his Narc High Score.
Nice.
And Sean, by the way, Sean, the Word Burglar, he's like one of the nicest dudes I've ever met.
I was just about to say that. I could not agree with you more.
Yeah,
he's probably the nicest, most intelligent, laid back person I've ever met.
And he is as talented as he is incredibly sweet and nice. Like he's such a cool dude, and he's so fun to watch on stage because he's one of those guys. He's like kind of like Jay-Z. Like he can just step on stage and nail it and make it look completely effortless. And it's honestly, I'm a little jealous that he looks like he doesn't have to put any work in because he's just that good.
It's funny, man, that you bring up nerdcore because those are our roots, right? Yeah. That's where we pretty much met, was nerdcore, the nerdcore scene. I was in RPG unit and I was doing
about RPG unit.
Yeah. Our Borderlands 2 album, that that was one of our cease and desists. I have 3 cease and desists in my career, and that was one of them. They're hey, you can't sample this. Take it down, or we're gonna sue you. Like that. I was like, okay, sorry.
when I was thinking about early days Robo Rob, though, I was thinking about Crandroids with you and Beaker.
Me and Beaker, yeah. We've been talking about doing stuff again, but it's just one of those things where it's like both of us have kids. We don't have Crandroids was going strong when I lived in Texas. When I was like Beaker was 10 minutes away from where I lived when I was in Texas. And like we were playing local shows and we played South by Southwest that year, 2017. Yeah, like it was a big year for us. But yeah, man, fucking nerdcore. We don't need to go on that tangent. We can have another podcast session for
that's a whole other podcast.
2009 to 2014 nerdcore culture I was deeply embedded in.
and that's kind of where I fell into the nerdcore scene and started, I was doing parties at a place here in Portland called the Space Room. I ran a party for about 3 years where it was
played there before, actually.
A lot of nerdcore and stuff. This would have been like more of a bar kind of thing. It wasn't really it wasn't really a venue.
Oh, okay. Probably not then.
But yeah, it was kind of a cool thing I had going on the monthly, and we were featuring a lot of nerdcore music. Coffin Pop came through one time, and I passed him the mic. And he gave me an instrumental of his Turtle Power cover from Partners in Rhyme or Partners in Crime or whatever.
That sounds right. Yeah,
it's from the 1990 Ninja Turtles movie.
I know what song you're talking about. I'm hearing it now in my head. Yeah, I know which one you're talking about.
TURTLE Power. Yeah, that one.
Yep, exactly.
And now I'm demonetized. I
think you're fine.
But okay, so it's really, really funny that you and I connected, and immediately we had a meeting, and you wanted to know more about what I've got going on in April, and now here it is. It's April. The party has been announced, and Curaga is sponsoring an event called Lo-Fi VGM at the Vault. And I'll throw up a visual of the flyer for anybody that's watching this on Facebook. They can see what the flyer looks like. But I'm really, really excited about this event because it is something that I've had kind of swimming around in the back of my brain for a little while now. And what's funny is I wrote up a little thing on the actual event page, and I'll share kind of a Cliff Notes version of it, just to kind of give a little bit of background and a little bit of an idea of like where this came from. I was at another event, and basically like at this other event, it was more of like a typical gaming bar event, right? Like, and I noticed that a lot of gaming events, and the Portland Retro Gaming Expo is no exception. A lot of times when you do a gaming culture focused event, it is very
Loud,
competitive and loud.
Yeah.
And there's a lot going on. Like, you know, it feels a bit casino like in that way. There's flashing lights, there's sounds going off everywhere, there's, you know, competing televisions. You know, somebody over here has a Smash Brothers thing going, someone over here has a Mario Kart thing going, and they both have the sound cranked so they can hear over each other. And that's all sort of like part of the environment. And there's absolutely a space for that in video gaming. I'm not trying to knock that experience at all.
100%.
But at the same time, I'm at this thing, which very much falls into that category of gaming event. And I had, my wife and I have one car. So like she had the car. And so I called her. I was like, hey, come get me. She was probably 20 minutes away or whatever. So I texted her, said, hey, come get me. And then I was like out on the patio out back chilling. And I overheard somebody saying, hey, I really want to go somewhere quiet to drink. Like he was telling his friends.
Yeah.
And so I walked over and introduced myself. Hey, my name's DJ Switch. I'm the DJ for the Portland Retro Gaming Expo. I'd like to know a little bit more about what's going on. So you know, because so we had a little chat. We agreed that the person hosting the event was doing a good job. We agreed that the event was every bit what it was intended to be, and it was fun, and then it was at a very fun place. They just felt very overstimulated, and
100%.
and that was something I had not experienced in the, you know, almost 10 years leading up to the pandemic of doing like nerdy events and gaming events and comic events and stuff. I had never really like considered that side of the culture. And I think because of the pandemic, it's gotten so much more common. And far more people, I think, are interested in the sort of like chill out, relax, you know, comfy vibe side of things.
Yeah.
And so I created this event called Lo-Fi VGM at the Vault. And it just happens to be the same week as my birthday. So why not? I'm also turning 40. Let's call it a birthday party.
Yeah.
And what I'm asking for my birthday this year is that people come and hang out and have kind of like a mental spa day for gamers, like warm candlelight, lo-fi VGM music. We're going to just kind of like chill out, focus on sort of like the cozier side of the video gaming community. You know, Animal Crossing, Pokemon, Stardew, like,
Yeah.
like just kind of like hang out and chill kind of games that I don't think get as much love in the public venues as the competitive stuff like Smash or Mario Kart or Tekken or, you know, Street Fighter or whatever, you know.
100%.
And so you and I kind of had a conversation about all this. I told you about the party idea. And Curaga was interested in sponsoring.
Yeah, 100%.
So I'm super stoked to have you guys on as a sponsor. Is anybody else doing anything like this?
Not to my knowledge, man. Like I know that at conventions like MagFest, for example, they have quiet rooms, and stuff like that. And I see more and more conventions picking up on those kind of things lately.
Yeah.
Where like even at ECCC last week or a couple weeks ago now at this point, right? Yeah, it was just very. There was a chill room, and I went in there, and it was fine. You know, it's just quiet. You know, it's just quiet room.
Sure.
It's not exactly what you're talking about, but I think it was a place where for people, you know, it's made as a place for people to go and just decompress and not have to, you know, think about the next panel they're going to, or like if they're going to or what they have to sacrifice to go see their favorite artist, you know, like that. Just something that always happens at these conventions. Like at ECC itself, like I even had that experience where it was like, well, if I want to see the Lord of the Rings cast, I have to miss out on these other 5 things and go stand in line for 4 hours. And
Yeah.
that's, you know, what am I going to do in those 4 hours? That, you know, I think it would be really cool if there was like a way for people to chill in line or these kind of things. And
Yeah.
or something like that, or like having a dedicated space like you're saying, and where people can come in, they can charge their phone, they can you know, we just, you know, ask everybody, hey, we're going to just play some chill music, and you know, there's water fountains and charging stations, and just keep it quiet, right? Like that's what the room is for.
There's a couple of examples I can think of, going all the way back to my first PAX, which was in 2010. My brand new girlfriend at the time, who I eventually married and became my wife. She had a spare ticket to PAX, and was like, hey, do you want to go? And I was like, yes. And I remember the Love Sack room that I had heard about. Yep. I had heard stories about a room full of love sacks where it was literally just people like laying around and playing on their DS. And that was the thing at PAX, like back then. And then, you know, the Portland Retro Gaming Expo, we have a space. It's not an isolated space like it probably should be, frankly. But there's a space on the floor where it's like beanbags and like chairs and like lounge, like a lounge area where people can like chill and kind of, you know, like get away from all of the stimulation a little bit. And so I've seen that at a lot of nerd conventions, but I've also seen it in the party space. I've played electronic events where they've booked me in the chill room, and I was playing you know, like I remember one night we were doing like an after party event thing, which this is weird. And this is, I know you'll probably know about this, but like for anybody listening that maybe isn't familiar with how the electronic music scene goes, sometimes people will do these after parties that start at 2 a.m. Yep. And this particular gig, I was booked from like 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. And I was playing reggae and like Sublime, Bob Marley.
It's chill reggae.
Yeah. It was all just like low key chill stuff in a room downstairs, while the main room was like, you know, 150 BPM and up upstairs.
Right. Yeah.
Just really like heart pounding fast, like crazy EDM stuff going on upstairs. And then anybody that wanted to like wind down, that's the room I was booked to play in. So there's precedent for this.
Oh yeah. 100%.
It's just wild to me that no one is doing that in the gaming space, at least not with all of the lo-fi VGM that's been coming out over the last few years.
Yeah. There's been a lot. I think there's been a lot more room since the pandemic started for that kind of music and that kind of space to be created. And like, there's been a lot more need for it.
Folks, I am thrilled to announce that this episode has once again been sponsored by Vault 31 Bar. Vault 31 is a state-of-the-art shelter designed by the best minds in the business for absolutely anyone that's 21 plus and lives for all things video games and geek culture. If you need to quench your thirst after a long day in the wasteland, Vault 31 offers an incredible selection of beverages and signature cocktails to help you rehydrate. Or if you're hungry, they've got plenty of delicious options available from their kitchen, including their new Smurshbergs or my recently discovered favorite, the Bat Cave. Since they are a gaming bar, they have tons of PC and console games available to play. And whether you hail from the Brotherhood, the Institute, the Atom Cats, or the Minutemen, every nerd from New California to the Commonwealth is welcome here. Vault 31 is just off East Mill Plain in Vancouver, Washington, and only a short 10 to 12 minute trip across the river from the Portland International Airport. Be sure to visit them at vault31bar.com or at Vault31Bar on Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube, and Twitch. Vault 31 is easily one of my favorite hangout spots in the greater Portland area, which is why I'm both flattered and excited to be partnering with them on bringing you future episodes of this podcast. Please be sure to check out their events calendar to find out what they'll be up to next. And when you do get a chance to stop by, please let them know I sent you. Maybe I'll even see you there. And with that, let's get back to the show.
So this kind of segues into how Curaga started, right? Early pandemic, early 2020, I get back from, that was a banger year for us at MagFest. And it was, we booked Tokyo Machine that year for main stage. So that was sick. Tokyo Machine, Ben Briggs. I can't remember off the top of my head who else played that year, but it was really good. So we're riding that high, and then all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, well, world's shutting down. We're sick, right?
Right.
COVID's here. And I was immediately in myself. I'm just one of the many people, that were affected by this, obviously.
Yeah.
But I found myself in a position where my main source of income was gone, right? Going to shows, selling music. That's where you make the money. Playing gigs, getting your name out there, that kind of thing. Keeping your name out there is a big one. Like getting your name out there and keeping your name out there to do two different things, right?
Yeah, 20-year DJ career stopped in the span of 45 minutes in March of 2020.
Exactly. Yep. So I mean, we had big plans that year. Cranjoids and RoboRob both had booked sets at South by Southwest, official sets, and that was canceled. South by was canceled that year. I had several summer shows that that just were up in limbo forever. They kept rescheduling them, and then they kept pushing them back, and then finally it was like, we can't do this convention this year anymore, so we're just not going to do it. And that was just a lot of like, there's just so much insecurity for a lot of people, a lot of folks during that time. I took to Twitch. I know a lot of people did. I learned real quick it wasn't my thing. But we tried. We had RoboRob's house night every Friday, and we did different themes, and we always were doing giveaways and fundraisers and stuff like that. So it was a good community building experience. But like,
I'm laughing because I was doing Wednesdays.
Yeah, I remember,
thing.
man. It was just, you did what you had to do to try and make ends meet. And it was like, okay, if I'm going to take this like really crappy payout from Twitch every month, and that's the only thing I can do to keep my brand relevant, then that's what I'm going to do. And I kind of just I think when I wasn't doing that, I just dived into sound production, right? I was just dove head first into sound production and trying to get my style. I was like, I'm tired of EDM. I can't play out EDM anymore, right? Like, It's just, I am not playing these shows. And I was tired of the rat race that is EDM production. And kind of decided to just take a step back from RoboRob and start working on jazzier stuff, which is what I like anyways. And I arranged my first lo-fi album, video game lo-fi Zelda. And I was just going to say, you got that one? That one has a freaking amazing cover done by Drew Wise. Yeah, there it is right there. Yeah, Drew Wise.
Is that the one you're talking about?
That
record right there?
That's the one. It was originally going to be a Materia Collective release, and I was going to do it as RoboRob. Yeah, just because
Is that why the artwork's different?
No, the artwork's different because at the time I'll get to that actually.
Okay.
Yeah. The main issue I was having was I didn't know how to brand myself differently, and so I was like, this is jazz hop, this is lo-fi. I can't put out lo-fi as RoboRob. It doesn't fit.
Yeah.
And I took it to Sebastian, who is the owner of Materia, and I asked him, hey, do you want something like this do you want to start like a lo-fi thing for the labels and have it be a separate from Materia Collective, because we have to brand it differently, right? You can't be branded as Materia Collective because it's so different from what they put out regularly that it would kind of just get lost in the shuffle, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And he immediately came back to me with, yeah, let's start a record label for this. We can give you a pseudonym, we can start a different alias for you. We can build this up from the ground up.
Wow.
And you can be in charge of it. And I was like, this is my dream job come true. This is what I want to be doing. So of course, let's figure it out. Let's do it. And that's pretty much how Curaga Records started. I had worked with them as Robo Rob for so long. And I still do Robo Rob work from time to time right now, but
yeah,
it's mostly just for like compilations, and I try to like collaborate with as many people on the label as possible, just because I like doing that. My favorite type of work is when I'm working with another artist and we get to make both of our ideas come to life together. And so I try to collaborate with every artist on the label at least one time for their on an album or something.
I think it's worth. I think we should talk about for a second. We should talk about Curaga Records because, as much as I love Curaga's focus on lo-fi and chill VGM stuff, you also have an upbeat electronic dance record label called Curaga Records. It was like a sister label, right?
Right. And that kind of came out as necessity of like. I know all of these producers, right? I know so many people that want to do video game music, and Sebastian is continuously saying, "Hey, who do you know that wants to do albums? Like, who can we get content from? Who can we start making content with, right?"
And that's
yeah, Rob A.K.A has been one of our. He's he is our number one artist on Curaga Records. Rob A.K.A is an incredible producer, and I've known him for like 15 years at this point. We've known who each other is, and I've always loved his music. His first Needle Mouse album that came out on Curaga, or excuse me, on Game Chops. Forever ago. That was, oh gosh, when was that? 2011 or 12, I think, when he came out with his first Sonic album with them. We actually remastered that, and we're putting it out on, get this, mini disc.
Yes, do it, please do it.
We are.
Please do it. I don't have them right here on my desk because I actually had to move them for reasons, but I have started to collect mini discs again.
Yeah, it's such a cool little format that I wish more people would like. It's so high quality in that little disc, and it's the way the problem is like CDs became the format, so
they became
mini
the
disc
common
went
format.
out of style.
Mini disc was the superior format, had always been the superior format, and honestly, probably would still be the superior format if MP3 hadn't been a thing.
Yeah, 100%.
That's another podcast for another time. But yes, please
Curaga,
put out mini disc.
Curaga started as a necessity to like differentiate our EDM artists from our lo-fi artists, and we have people who do both, right? Like I do both. Sare does both as Sare and Lost Tree. Floopy does both under the same name. So we have a lot of mainstays that are doing things for both labels right now, which is great. But it's just a way to brand differently. We're reaching different artists, we're reaching different fans. And
was it Lost Tree that did the Sonic?
Lost Tree did Sonic and Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, okay.
Volume 1. And next month, it's April already. So this month, Sonic Frontiers. Speaking of trying to hit newer games instead of always cashing in on nostalgia, right? So Lo-Fi Sonic Frontiers is coming soon.
I mean, it's no secret on this show. I was a Sonic kid. Genesis was kind of my first proper video game console. After my dad had an Amiga store, so like I had a Commodore Amiga for a long time, and so getting away from the PC and computer game stuff, my first proper video game standalone console was the Genesis. And so nice. Sonic will forever have that place in my heart.
Yeah.
Not to mention, like, some of the baddest music in all of video game history was Sonic music.
Yeah,
Like,
Chemical Plant Zone is one of the best compositions of all time.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Sonic. I'm trying to remember the name of. It was like a band that they formed in house at Sega. I think they were called Sega Sound Team.
It's Sega Sound Team, yeah.
And they recorded music for everything from like Space Harrier to Sonic to
Daytona. They
Outrun.
did Outrun.
Yeah, just all kinds, all this music over the years for Sega in house at Sega. And so yeah, like some of the music for Sega games back in the day, but especially the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise, the early days of the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise, like goes way harder than it has any right to.
Right. And that's exactly, you just named off one of the exact reasons why I love remixing video game music so much. It's like, this music has no right being this freaking good. And so I want to put my own spin on it, if you will, spin on the Sonic spin.
No, I see what you did there. Spin Records, spin dash. Michael Jackson, Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Come on.
Yeah.
How does it get better than that? It can't.
It does not. King of Pop.
I really, really love that we got to sit down and do this today.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you want to maybe run down like a list of places people can find you, find your music, find you on socials?
Yeah, it's just you can go to Curaga Records on pretty much any platform. Just search for Curaga Records and you'll find the label, and Save Point Lo-Fi everywhere else. For my personal page, you can find all of our stuff on Bandcamp, as well as the Materia store, which is really easy to get to, materia.store. It'll take you straight to, they have a lo-fi selection and everything at the top of the site. So real easy to grab whatever you want there as well. And I guess, yeah, just like general socials, if you want to follow those, we are pretty good about keeping everyone up to date on what we're doing. When's it coming out, when you can pre-order stuff whenever we do that. Side note, I personally hate pre-order period the most, because in my opinion, there's only so much attention you can grab from people in the online space these days, and saying big things coming soon for a month and a half is just going to make people walk away. And maybe that's just like a personal thing, but like when I see someone continuously saying this is coming out soon, instead of just giving me the thing that they did, like, it annoys me to no end. So also I try to keep pre-order periods small, right? Like that window of if we need to do a pre-order, but I'd rather just launch the album, let everyone know that it's out, let the artists can do their own promo if they want, but from the label side of things, the promo comes after the release, right? So when it's out, you make a bunch of noise instead of saying, hey, everyone, pre-order my album 20 times. And
I think
release.
I think crowdfunding is necessary for a lot of folks trying to get off the ground. I also think that crowdfunding has been wildly over abused on the internet.
Oh, 100%. And that's one of the reasons why I've been so stingy because Sebastian, like any good record label executive CEO, he says pre-orders for everything. We need that money in the bank. We need to make sure that we have the funds available to make these runs. Okay, I get that. I understand that. Sure. However, people are not chomping at the bit to give us their money for something that's not going to be available for 6 months. They're just not. And
especially in the music space,
in the music space, and especially in the remix music space, because we are a niche within a niche, right? We are a remix community. We are also a lo-fi community, and then underneath that is even another layer of video game music. So we're not doing any original stuff yet. That's in the pipeline. One of my goals is to get all of our artists into kind of like an in-house production group house, right? Like getting all of our artists in under the same roof and getting them partnered up with like schools that need media projects, music for their media projects, video game work, music work. Like if we had like 5 or 6 artists that could tackle a game for a developer, I think that would blow up, right? Like
Yeah.
there's a few people out there doing cool things in that space, but I think there's definitely room for like, do you specifically want jazz? Do you specifically want lo-fi? Do you specifically want house music? Do you specifically want whatever EDM would fit best with your project? That's we have the ability to get that kind of stuff done, and I'm making strides to get our artists some more work in that area, and myself. Like I love remixing music, video game music, but my bigger goal here is like to be in video game music, and I've got a few notches on my belt personally, like on the Robo-Rob side of things. Did music in Crypt of the Necrodancer Amplified DLC pack, and was mastering engineer for that project with Overclocked Records.
Oh wow!
to bring it back around, that was my first game. That was my first like project in the actual video game space. Was that OCR project, the DLC project? Yeah. That kind of kicked off a lot of things. That was a lot of fun.
I mean, we certainly have enough mutual friends. Mega Ran. I can probably think, I mean, and I'm sure you could too, but like we have enough people that we both know that are in that space that like, I'm sure it's not going to be hard for you to be able to hook up with a video game producer at some point and be able to start doing original stuff. But I'm curious, normally I would save this for the Patreon, but I'm curious before we go, and I'll leave this on the main show. Who do you like right now as an artist in the video game space? Because I've got one at the top of my mind, and I'm kind of curious to see who you like outside of so let's say outside of the Curaga family.
Okay. I'm gonna say Dom Palombi.
Okay.
He's an incredible drummer, and he's worked with a lot of projects that Materia Collective has been involved in. Like, for example, he's in I think he did some work with, oh my gosh, why can't I remember names right now? Because you put me on the spot. No, but Dom Palombi himself, he does this thing called Dom Palombi's Game Night, which is essentially a lot of like jazz and rock fusion style remixes.
That's fun.
He's got a whole band that comes on board with him, like 88-bit done stuff with him. Insane in the Rain, Ian from Insane in the has done some stuff with him.
Yeah.
Just a group of incredible musicians all doing these really cool live arrangements. I think he did PAX East this last year. He played at MagFest several times in several sets, yeah, everything that he's been doing lately has just been like super fucking in the pocket and like just exactly my style of like funk, jazz, rock, fusion.
Yeah. I really, really like Insane in the Rain. I have been absolutely in love with the 8-Bit Big Band. What they're doing out of New York is just incredibly like bleeding edge, top tier work. And they're getting some really amazing artists to collaborate with them too. Guys like Leo P and Charles Bartown. I mean, just like
Charlie Rosen did some stuff with them, right?
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
It's what 8-Bit Big Band is doing for video game music. I think is really phenomenal. And the way that they're incorporating a lot of like well-known YouTube musicians as collaborations to sort of draw attention to what they're doing is also really, really great work. I have to say though, like if I had to pick a name on the top of my list right now is T. Lopez.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, T. Lopez is just everything that they're producing. It started with Sonic Mania, which I was so in love with that whole soundtrack. And not only was I in love with the Sonic Mania soundtrack that T. Lopez did, but also the thing you did with Tiny Waves, where you
Oh,
guys
yeah,
remixed
I
Sonic
mastered
Mania.
that album too. I think, if I
That
remember.
was a really fun album too.
Yeah, it was.
Um,
I don't know. Wait, Blinded maybe for that one.
and
I can't
those
remember.
were, and that was a few years before Curaga even was a thing. Like,
That was like 2016 or 17. Yeah.
yeah. Um, yeah, it was wild, man, because it was like right around then you and I were kind of like meeting up on the regular for a few production lessons and things like that. And that, I mean, honestly, since the pandemic, that's something that I've been wanting to get back into and learn more. But it was funny that you and I were meeting up to do that, and then like meanwhile I was like low key listening to like your Tiny Wave stuff, and I was
Yeah.
listening to your Crandoid stuff, and I was like, oh shit, I get to hang out with Robo Rob.
I'm
And
just a guy.
now we've done it on camera, and so
Yeah.
I can't thank you enough, man. Thank you so much for doing this
Yeah,
today.
this has been really fun. Thanks for having me on the podcast, and I'll be able to come back and talk about other shit.
Oh yeah, I'm absolutely gonna have you back. So that's going to do it for my interview with my friend Rob from Curaga Records. Of course, a big, massive thank you to all of you for sticking around all the way to the end. I really, really appreciate you taking the time to enjoy the show. If you enjoyed the show, please consider subscribing to the YouTube channel. I know it seems like I'm begging, but honestly, it's what needs to happen in order for me to be able to get this show out to more folks. I have something very cool coming in the very near future. And it's the kind of thing that I really, really don't think you'll want to miss. And so I highly recommend subscribing to the YouTube channel. I have multiple people set up for a very special episode. It's going to be unlike anything I've done so far, and it's going to get wild. So make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. Of course, there will be extra content on the Patreon. And I really hope that you all will join us over there. In the meantime, I will see you next week for my next episode, and then of course next Saturday, just over a week away on the 20th, for my birthday party at Vault 31. Thanks so much, everybody. I'll see you on the next one.